Aloha, this is Santa Surfing. Welcome to Beach Broadcast. Today is Monday, November 17th, 2025. How was your weekend? I kind of laid low this weekend. I had a lot of stuff I had to get done. I hope you had a really, really wonderful weekend. Thanks so much for joining us on santasurfing.locals.com. It's a community of like minds, like hearts. Oh my gosh, it's beautiful. And also, thank you so much for joining us on x.com. Some people are saying, how can I get that MAGA beanie? Just go to the store link and there's the MAGA beanie. So we have this MAGA beanie, we have little Christmas mugs. So we have a few fun items for Christmas. So today's podcast is Trump calls to release the Epstein files. I know it sounds like a broken record, but we're getting some progress now. It equals crimes against humanity and justice for the children. November 12th, President Trump truthed this. In other words, the Democrats are using the Epstein hoax to try to deflect from their massive failures, in particular the shutdown. Then on the 14th, President Trump, he calls for the investigation into Bill Clinton, Larry Summers, Reid Hoffman, J.P. Morgan, and Chase, and many others. There is that. So the Democrats are using the Epstein hoax involving Democrats, not Republicans, to try to deflect from the disastrous shutdown and all of their other failures. I will be asking AG Bondi and the Department of Justice together. Remember, Todd Blanche is on the team, together with the great patriots of the FBI to investigate Epstein's involvement with relationship with Bill Clinton, Larry Summers, Reid Hoffman, J.P. Morgan, Chase, and many other people and institutions to determine what is going on with them. And this is another Russia scam, with all arrows pointing to the Democrats. Records show that these men and many others spent large portions of their life with Epstein and on his island, quote unquote. Stay tuned. Okay, so President Trump, he is going there and he's making it clear, and he's calling it right now the Epstein hoax. So again, he's doing this for a reason. He's getting the TDSers to just kind of go little bonkers. And now President Trump says he calls for the release of the Epstein files. See how he's saying it's a Russian hoax. It's just a distraction. Actually, the distraction is that the Clinton Foundation was referred to the Senate. All the files were referred to the Senate. Imagine all of those files, all of the crimes against humanity files. Well, then they came up with the Epstein hoax, and then, I'll get to it in a moment. Now, President Trump, he posted this. As of Friday night on board Air Force One, the House Republicans should vote to release the Epstein files because we have nothing to hide, and it's time to move on from the Democrat hoax perpetrated by the radical left lunatics. Okay, so there's that. Now, he even put in here trap. So he said, let's start making the Republican Party's record-setting achievements not fall into the Epstein trap, which is actually a curse on the Democrats, not us. Now, I'm going to call this the ultimate Trump trap. Okay, why? Is because of this. Again, think like Trump. Think about the movie he's got to play out. The Trump trap has been set, and they're glorious. So months ago, Elon's like, Trump is in the Epstein files. Trump, no need to release the Epstein files. Democrats, we want the Epstein files. Democrats last week, Trump's name is in the email. He's in the file. Release the file. Well, that email was a nothing burger in terms of any kind of President Trump didn't do any crimes. All it said in the email is that he was talking to a victim. What they failed to mention, the media failed to mention, it was Virginia Giuffre. All right, so they failed to mention that. And then, of course, we know Virginia's testimony said Trump did nothing wrong, nothing. And now, so number 5, Trump, okay, release the files, which is today. And Democrats, they're going to be in for a big surprise. And this is President Trump and Elon now, because they were setting everybody up. They were setting out the traps because the Democrats, the liberals, they're like, Trump is in the files. What they keep forgetting is that, come on, you've got Andrew, no longer a prince, stepped down from his title. He no longer has his title, royalty, nothing. They're not talking about that. They're not talking about Bill Clinton. They're not talking about Hillary Clinton, the Clinton Foundation, crimes against humanity. They're all about just one person. And it's like, can you take a look at all the people that you support? So now we're going to even take a little bit further. So Epstein, Jeffrey Epstein himself was colluding with the Democrats during a congressional hearing. Check this out. This is from Washington Post. Shocker. He's posting, the Washington Post posted this, and watch carefully. The text messages that you see, I'm going to go ahead and highlight them, but the text messages you see, they are between a Congress member, a Democrat Congress member, and Jeffrey Epstein during a congressional hearing. Check this out.
This was when Barack Obama was president of the United States. And while we were once driving through a struggling neighborhood in Chicago, he commented that only black people could live that way. Attorney-client privilege, yes, I will turn it over.
You, as my friend Mr. Meadows pointed out, misled this committee even today in a written submission that contradicted your testimony. You have suggested you are going to review that. Are you going to review it in our next break to correct the record, yes or no?
Yes.
Question, you helped out the president's campaign or were involved in the campaign as a representative, as a spokesman, even in your words today. It was your idea for the campaign dating back to 2011. Is that accurate, yes or no?
Yes.
Mr. Weisenberg and other individuals, Ms. Rona. Who are those individuals? Are they with the Trump organization?
They
and
are.
Are there other people that we should be meeting with?
So Alan Weisselberg is the chief financial officer.
You got to quickly give us as many names as you can so we can get to them.
Yes, ma'am.
As Ms. Rona, what is Ms. Rona's position?
Rona Graff is Mr. Trump's executive assistant.
And would she be able to corroborate many of the statements that you've made here?
Yes, her office is directly next to his, and she's involved in a lot.
So they go to a congressional hearing unprepared, and this is the one for the Virgin Islands, the Democrat for the Virgin Islands. They go to a hearing, they're not prepared. I don't know who Rona is. She had to even call it. She didn't know if it was Rona, a last name, Rona, a first name. So who is Miss Rona? All right, she was like, hurry up, Jeffrey Epstein, I'm up next. And Epstein had to go ahead and put that out there. And of course, you got this guy, he's a convicted felon, and he's all anti-Trump. He is testifying, of course, trying to frame Trump again, and it didn't work. I will say this, if there was a Republican that had this report out there, the liberals would be unhinged. But no, crickets from the TDSers. The consequences of what they just did is a federal crime. Now you understand why President Trump federalized D.C. So asking AI, whenever I do a search, usually I ended up, before AI, I would have like many articles to go ahead and go through in order to get my information. Now AI consolidates and gets it for me. So interfering in a congressional hearing can lead to serious legal and constitutional consequences. As such, actions may constitute obstruction of Congress, which is a federal crime. Various statutes criminalize interference with congressional activities, including obstruction by intimidating, threats, deception, or destruction of evidence, witness tampering, and conspiracy to defraud the United States. Violations can result in fines and imprisonment with penalties, including up to 20 years in prison. Well, Epstein's ready. Well, in the public eye, bit the dust. But what about her, right? Plaskett. Now Congress can also get expelled. I asked, can Congress get expelled for activity like that? Yes, members of Congress can be expelled if they intentionally interfere with or obstruct a congressional hearing, as such conduct may be deemed disorderly behavior. Article 1, Section 5, Clause 2 of the U.S. Constitution. This clause grants each chamber of Congress the authority to expel a member with 2/3 majority vote. Okay, so there we have that. Now, it goes through a couple of different scenarios there, but it gives you an idea that what she did was absolutely illegal. What she did was taking that information and she was going ahead and she was using it for her questions. Again, they just don't, Q is right. These people are stupid. But now let's go back to the Epstein list. Remember you listening to this podcast or reading the article, you are way ahead of the majority of the world, of the planet. Many steps ahead. You know the big names that are coming out, but they don't. Why I said that is because there is a Q post, and it was a list of names, just a list of names. Let's point out the obvious. There's Jeffrey Epstein's name. Then we go down here, and there is Ghislaine Maxwell's name. And then we go over here, we have Bill Clinton, right? You have loser Barry's name in here. Oh my gosh, they are just sick people. Again, this is a very short list, but they have all these names in here. When those names start to come out, and there's a lot of movie star names, you notice that the movie stars aren't out. They're not out there trashing Trump and doing their blank posting out. No. Well, it's kind of hard to do when you're under dirt or at Gitmo or in an 8x8 cell somewhere. A bunch of names, and Oprah's name is in here as well. So you can take a look at that, click on there, and it'll take you to the Q post, and you can go ahead and take a look at all the names. Now, remember last week on last Friday's podcast, A.G. Utmeyer, he set the precedent for pursuing the death penalty, and he called the crime that a particular individual committed a crime against humanity. I'm going to play this clip again so you can kind of refresh your memory on this. But then you'll know, because of this, you know many other cases, they're bound to have the same kind of, they're bound to come out, and they're bound to have crimes against humanity. Listen, just like the liberals are trying to normalize when transgender was popular, they were trying to normalize that. What I see the Trump team or very ultra-conservative attorney generals are doing, they're normalizing the phrase crime against humanity, so it's front and center in a person's brain, and then you eventually have somebody that says, those were crimes against humanity. Check this out.
I'm going to announce this morning that in this case, we will be seeking the death penalty. I believe that crimes like this against young children, where you take their innocence, you take their childhood away from them, these horrific acts deserve the ultimate form of justice. So we will be doing everything we can legally to send him to meet his maker. I'm going to announce.
Holmberg is the person that A.G. Utmeyer is referring to. And if you've got one case like this, it sets a precedent. Again, goes back to the mayor of New York. He won. Now they're talking about stripping his citizenship and deporting him. Well, again, setting a precedent. Setting a precedent is so big right now. President Trump, yesterday, he posted this clip. And he's posting a ton of surfer Anon's clips out there. He posted this clip on treason, and it was dated back in 2019. And it's pretty much saying, he's talking about the entire swamp, the Stroke, the Page, the Comeys, the Clapper, Brennan's, all of that. He posted that. And kind of, again, bringing treason front and center. Now, July 22nd, 2025, President Trump, he called out Obama and all the others for treason. I'm just going to play the part where he calls them out and he says this is treason. This is, again, just days after Tulsi Gabbard reported about the treasonous conspiracy that Obama, Clapper, Comey, and Brennan all committed.
They caught President Obama absolutely cold. Tulsi Gabbard all over the place. It was them too. But the leader of the gang was President Obama, Barack Hussein Obama. Have you heard of him? And except for the fact that he gets shielded by the press for his entire life, that's the one they... Look, he's guilty. It's not a question. You know, I like to say, let's give it time. It's there. He's guilty. This was treason. This was every word you can think of.
President Trump is just going there this term. We're beginning to see more and more of that. And he called out what Obama, the gang leader, and all those other cronies did was treason. We did a podcast earlier this year, and it was just actually a few weeks ago, but in this article, how Trump refers to many, many, many people, and this whole podcast is on treason, but it talks about Mike Pence, which, by the way, Mike Pence is hinting about running for president. I'm saying go for it, Mike Pence, because he won't last 5 minutes with you. With all of you out there that have all of your truth bombs shelved in your library, online library, it'll all come out and he won't last 5 minutes. So Mike Pence, and so he has made it very clear about certain people and their treason, Hillary Clinton. Again, we have seen this. It is a broken record, but are we beginning to see, will we eventually now see some justice happen to all of them? So stay with me, because what I find very interesting is that the movie, it's more of an updated version of the Nuremberg. It's called Nuremberg, and it was released on November 7th. It's about, and again, this is written by a liberal Yahoo, and they put it under the entertainment section. Russell Crowe's historical drama Nuremberg has an urgent warning for audiences. Well, they're trying to spin it, and they're trying to say, well, they're trying to cushion what this movie is all about. But the writer of this movie said, I started working on it for 13 years, and I thought it was relevant then, and I think it's relevant now, and I think it'll be relevant, unfortunately, in the future. But I think there's also hope in it too, because I think this was a moment in time where all of these countries came together to choose justice over vengeance and do the right thing. It's the harder thing, but it was the right thing. So this is, again, playing at different theaters across the country, but the release date of that is really, really interesting. So now we're beginning why you came on the platform. Children, right? The Justice for the Children. Last Friday, President and Melania Trump, they signed an executive order for the aged out foster children, how they will help them, how they'll make sure they're very, very, very prosperous. So they're not going to just leave them out in the streets and say, good luck. No, they're going to actually do things for them, help them. And there's a lot of entities and businesses that are involved in that transition, which is beautiful. But now it's justice for the children. It's coming in a very, very big way. When the world learns about all of those horrible crimes that will start to come out and how many others committed crimes against humanity, those perpetrators that destroyed human life, they're going to get their justice. The world can start to heal. And those young little babies that survived those horrific crimes, or the young children, they'll be able to have the protection. It's always been about, for us, well, I can speak for me, I can't speak for everybody else, but for us, for me, it's all about saving the children, and more so protecting the children, making sure none of this happens again. And then now we're watching how it's paving the way for their future, how all of the things that are going on in the financial world is paving the way for the future. But their day of the justice is coming for the children, and they are going to have their justice. They didn't have a voice that was heard. Nobody was listening to them. The Lord God, Jesus was listening to them, but people here, we were here listening to them. But when you reported it, now that we know that the corruption runs deep, how the different liberal attorney generals, they turned a blind eye to it. Congress turned a blind eye. DOJ turned a blind eye. FBI, media, the President of the United States, Obama, and all those dirty, sick crimes that he did. Of course, they're going to turn a blind eye to all of those crimes, and nobody was going to help them. Nobody was going to pave the way for them. And then President Trump came in 2017, and that's why a lot of the actors and actresses in Pedowood, they were freaking out. They were very angry, because that got dismantled, and now President Trump is rolling out the greatness for the children, the greatness for you, the greatness for just about every walk of life, the veterans, the homelessness, now the aged out foster children. Of course, he's got plans for the children, and the mega accounts for newborn babies. Can you imagine what those accounts are going to look like? They're going to be massive. Bonuses for if you join ICE, bonuses if you stayed with your job. And then the $2,000 dividend that's going out to a certain income level, up to $100,000 in income. All of that is going to be absolutely glorious, and it's just going to be really remarkable how things will start to turn around. But President Trump has to take care of this. And I'm wondering if he switched things up, because a lot of people were like, we want to see the Epstein list. Well, with me, I want to see the greatness. I want to see all of that rolling out. So maybe President Trump is saying, okay, you guys want the Epstein list out? Let's get that out, and let's just move forward and keep moving on. But just keep spending time with God and just asking Him, because some of you have gone down that rabbit hole about the crimes against humanity and maybe not able to sleep. I know I couldn't for 2 years, and many of you couldn't sleep or still can't sleep because going down that rabbit hole is just really heartbreaking and terrifying and horrific, and you just can't imagine anybody doing those types of things, but they did. But to spend time with God and ask for the healing. And then if you have a need, ask God. I mean, how's your faith and manifestation? I have to share something with you really quick about manifesting something really crazy. I was just like, there's this really great hoagie place in New Jersey, and it's in Atlantic City, and it's so good. It's called White House Hoagies. I've only had it once or twice, and it was so good. I still, sometimes think about it. I asked my husband, I said, I wonder if they'll ever have like a delivery for White House hoagies. And he looked at me, he goes, only you would think of that. And he was giggling, and we were both laughing. Well, guess what? A loved one of ours sent 8 of these. They're like 18 inches long hoagies, and the lettuce was still crisp, and I'm thinking, this is awesome. But talk about manifestation. And I heard our Lord God just smiling and kind of like giggling, like, see, I answer prayers. I was just thinking about it, but when you start manifesting all of that, manifesting the joy and laughter of the children and how their lives are going to be the road for their lives is paved because of you. And don't think for one moment that you're not going to reap the benefits. If not here on earth, you will in heaven, yeah? And keep imagining yourself with our Lord God next to you in His presence. He's right there in your office, next to you on the patio table, at your dining table, wherever you may be, and He's right there with you, and all He wants to do is just bring you so much joy. But with that, we have to go through some challenges in order to get there, yeah? So just keep embracing that, and we're going to start to see the justice for the children, which is so phenomenal. Thanks for listening to this podcast, and I want to thank the many, many people that shared the podcast as well. God bless you all so abundantly. Have a beautiful day, afternoon, evening, and I will have a show tomorrow. Aloha.